Welcome to the AstroTorah podcast, the podcast where we talk about astrology and Torah. And we have here with us the author of Kosher Astrology. Welcome.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm super excited about this, to actually do a podcast with somebody who knows astrology. So that's really new for me, and I'm super excited about this.
I'm so excited too. And you mentioned that there is some special connection that you wanted to introduce this podcast episode with.
Yes. So I'm a huge believer in to listen to your messages, that Hashem is constantly sending us messages to really help and direct our lives. And there's no such thing as coincidences. So astrology clearly shows there's no such thing as coincidences. And then you have to be open to the messages that Hashem is constantly sending us. So when you invited me to the podcast, okay, I was excited. A couple of days before the podcast, you sent me the address where I should go to for the podcast. And I literally nearly fell out of my chair. So here's the thing. This office with the podcast is being recorded. I used to work here. In my last cycle, in progressed moon cycle, and we'll get into that, 30 years ago, this used to be my offices. There was a number of offices here that we owned. I was in the wholesale watch business. I worked in the family business. And it's so wild. I never thought I'll be back here to come back to the place that I literally used to work here. Now, what's so crazy and wild about that is that in the progressed moon, there's a 30-year cycle. So just like this Rosh Chodesh, every single month we have a new moon, right? So that's when the sun meets the moon, and it's a new beginning, a new opportunity, a new energy that's coming in. And 7.5 days later, we have a first quarter moon. And 7.5 days later after that, we have a full moon. And the full moon is very important in Judaism. It's all about self-revelation. That's when the moon is the most revealed. That's when the night sky is the most revealed. The first night of Pesach is always on the full moon, because that's when the Jewish people recognize that they're not a slave nation. Excuse me, that they are here to do something greater within this world. And so they recognize that's not who they're meant to be. So that's what the full moon is all about, self-revelation. Then 7.5 days later, we have a last quarter moon. And then 7.5 days later, we start this cycle all over again, right? So in astrology, we also have this cycle, but instead of a 30-day cycle, it's a 30-year cycle. So when you have a new moon, you're starting a whole new cycle for the next 30 years of your life. And at the first quarter moon is a major turning point in your life. So for me, at my first quarter, which happened like 15 years ago, that's when I first discovered astrology. Hashem sent it into my life. I had no idea that this was going to be something I'll be doing, and Hashem sent it into my life. At my full moon, that was a time of a lot of personal growth and self-revelation. That's when I met with an artist who told me I can also be an artist. And I was like, I'm a scholar, I love psychology. I'm not an artist. I don't have good hand-to-eye coordination. And yet, I took my own advice, which is always stay open. And I did have different ideas I wanted to bring out. And Hashem sent me the program Adobe Illustrator, which is an illustration program. So you don't need to have perfect hand-to-eye coordination, because the program fixes whatever's wrong. And I loved it. And my book I created 75 pages of illustrations. That's in my book, is something that I created, that I learned a whole new skill set that I had in my mid-40s at my full moon. So that's what the self-revelation is. Then 7.5 years later, you have a last quarter moon. And between the full moon and the last quarter moon, there's something called disseminating moon. That's when you start sharing your ideas with the world that you started all the way 25 years ago. And that's when I started writing my book. And I spent 5 years writing my book, Kosher Astrology. And then we reached the last quarter moon. And the last quarter moon is the fulfillment of the whole cycle. That's when the tree bears fruit. And that's when my book was published. And now I'm 2 years after that, and that's when I'm sharing it with the world. I'm going on all these podcasts. It's like the peak of my cycle, which is incredible. I'm so grateful to Hashem every day. It's been an incredible ride. 30 years ago, exactly at this point, when also I was at my peak of my child cycle. So you have this cycle, this 30-year cycle, 3 times. You have a child cycle, you have an adult cycle, and you have an elder cycle. And it's so powerful to see this. So 30 years ago, I was in the same place. I was also at the peak of my cycle. I was in import-export business. I was selling watches and sports equipment all over the world. I traveled to Hong Kong and Switzerland and England and all these places all over the world. And I was at the peak then also. Baruch Hashem, I was very successful at that time. And it's crazy. 30 years later, I show up in the exact same spot. I'm also at the peak of my adult cycle. And that's what we're doing here to talk about kosher astrology and spread it to the world. I'm like,
that's so crazy.
Mind blown. Like,
that's so
wow.
crazy. Okay, so just in layman's term, for people who don't understand, can you explain the progressed moon cycle from age 0 to 15 to 30 to 40 to 45? Can you approximately give the numbers of years and the typical progress moon cycle that someone who knows nothing about the moon cycle can, so they can relate where in their life they are and how it could be affecting them?
So the thing with the progressed moon cycle, it's very much dependent on your chart. So the first cycle, the child cycle, everybody starts at a different stage. Like once you reach your adult cycle, then it's 30 years straight. But let's say if you were born, you could have been born at the first quarter moon. So your first cycle is only going to have, let's say, 20 years. It's not going to have the full 30 years. So some people, it can be as little as 16 years to as much as 45 years. So some people, it takes them a while. They, at a very young age, they really start reaching adulthood and they really start doing and accomplishing and starting to do things in the world because their child cycle was very short. Other people, it takes them a while for them to get going, maybe in their 30s, even in their 40s, because their child cycle took much longer than other people's child cycle. So that's a child cycle. But once you hit the adult cycle, everybody has the same. So it's going to be different for every person. But every 7.5 years, it's a major growth point in your life, a major turning point. That's when people get married. That's when they quit their jobs. That's when they learn new information. That's when you can literally, with astrology, you can literally track your developments in your life. I've tracked my entire life, and it's mind-blowing. And what does that tell me? It tells me that Hashem is deeply involved in my life. He wants me to succeed. He laid out a plan for my life, even when it feels struggling. And we all gone through hard times and difficult times and crisis even. And it's all part of the process, especially if we're going in the wrong direction. That's when Hashem puts a hard stop and we don't know, why did this happen? Why did I get fired from my job? I always ask people, if you get fired from your job, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Right? So the initial thing, it's a shock and it's pain, it's hurtful, but it's probably the best thing that ever happened to you because you need to really step into your own. So it's all part of this an amazing process. And for me to see that, wow, 30 years ago, I was at the peak of my cycle right here in this office. And 30 years
That's
later,
crazy.
I'm like, wow.
And also, what's interesting is that it's not only, so first of all, in terms of the progress moon cycle, this goes to show that not only can someone look at their birth chart, which is a snapshot of the sky at the time of their birth, not only can they see their sun, their moon, their rising, their planetary aspects, but there is another element, right? So this really goes to show how layered astrology is when it comes to understanding someone. It's not just that, let's say, for example, you're born a Sagittarius, so you're going to be into studying and you're going to want to be a scholar, but maybe you're born during an elder cycle where you are, you have this old soul, which we can look at through looking at the progress moon cycle. So it's very layered.
Absolutely. It's a full coverage. So there's the birth chart, which gives you incredible amounts of information about who you are, what your potential is. It's not a done thing. That's a big misconception that people have, that your birth chart, everything is there. I know who I am. There's a growth process. You only might have activated half of your chart. There's still a lot of stuff. That's when I do a chart reading, I make sure to check in with people. Have you activated this? Are you aware of this? And some people go, this I know, this not so much. I know it's there, but I'm not really. Okay, that's the next level of your growth. So there's tons of information in the birth chart. Then we have transits. We have planets in the sky right now and in a couple of years and in the past constantly connecting with different planets in your birth chart that deeply affects you. It's a huge time of growth in your life. If Uranus is connecting to it, that's all about becoming authentic, learning to speak your truth, because in order to be who you're meant to be, you got to be tough. You have to not be concerned with criticism. Oh, if I speak up, it's going to affect the shidduchim of my children. What's my rabbi going to say? What's my community going to say? Cancel culture. No. So Uranus is telling you, no, speak your truth. Yes, you might have some pushback, but that's how you build your strength. Or if you have Neptune, a time of elevation, a time of transcendence. And we're going to talk about, we have some Neptune going on that's wild. We'll talk about that. And so there's all of these different energies that are constantly happening. Some are much rarer than others. Some happen once in 40 years. So it's amazing to understand that that's what's happening to you right now to help your growth. And this is all Hashem sending you these energies to help you grow, to help you become who you're meant to be. So that's incredible. And that's just the second part. Then there's the synastry charts or couples charts where you can compare different people and see what's happening between them. So there's so much information with astrology. That's why it's so amazing. And that's why it's so crucial to bring it to the world.
Which is what you're doing in the book.
Yes, I'm an ambassador. That's what I believe. That my mission right now is to be an ambassador for kosher astrology, to let everybody know how powerful it is, how it's directed by Hashem. This is all Hashem doing this. And this is incredibly helpful to understand our lives. Yes.
Amazing. Okay, so to take it back a little bit, we have the birth chart, very simple. A baby is born at a certain time. We take a picture of the sky and we look at the different planets. Every planet has a different message, a different role, a different power. That's clear, that's understood. That's one picture, one set picture. Additionally, the planets move. They're always moving, right? This is, nature is constantly evolving. And it's also affecting this one picture. So we have a basic blueprint. On top of the blueprint, we're going to have the current activities. It's like looking at the weather, what is going on today. It's also looking at the collective weather. How is everybody feeling today? You know, what's on the news? Is there some crazy energy coming up that everyone is tapping into? That's also affecting, obviously, the understanding of the chart. Then we have other analysis that are possible, like the progressed moon, and so on and so forth. Now, you said multiple times, and it's all Hashem, right? You go into this place of, and not only do we have access to all this incredible knowledge, which is really so accessible and so easily accessible, but then you go into this place of, it means Hashem, the creator of the universe, is caring for me, guiding me, showing me. But how do you make that connection? Because what happens in my line of work, which is the same line of work as yours, I'm an Aries. I will not apologize for anything. So if people come to me and they say, well, that's not allowed, or that's not kosher, or how do you defend this? My answer is, I am not the right person to talk to, but buy the Kosher Astrology book. Everything is in the book, right? So I don't have the language to defend or to apologize for something really that is the language of nature and that is ours by design. But you are clearly capable to enter this conversation. So when you jump from, we have all this knowledge, we have so much guidance, we have so much clarity, and it's so layered, right? When we're looking at the chart and we're looking at a planetary placement, we have the shadows aspect of this placement and the light aspect of this placement, right? And then we have a transit. So the transit is going to activate maybe the shadows. So this is so magical and so layered and so rich. How do you then connect it to Hashem?
Okay, so absolutely. It's very confusing because for a long time, the message that we're getting is that astrology is forbidden in some way. It's divination. It's predicting the future. There's something wrong with it. It's idol worship. There's something wrong with it. It just, so where's that coming from? Because for thousands of years, the way people practiced astrology was they literally worship the planets. The Talmud, written 1,500 years ago, when it's referring to the pagan nations, it called them Oivdei Kechavim, worshiper of the planets. So this was an incorrect usage of astrology, where literally they thought that these planets were false gods, and if they created all different kinds of spells, and they take hair and blood from animals at certain kind of time and build certain statues to the planet, and then they buried the statue under their competitor's store, that he would go out of business, that the planet would harm their enemies and benefit them. So it started out as idol worship combined with sorcery. So of course this is strictly forbidden, and the Torah speaks very strongly against it. All the times when they quote you a verse in the Torah talking about how it's forbidden, it's all talking about the idol worshiping sorcery version of astrology, which in my book I define as astral magic. That is clearly forbidden and not allowed. So that's one of the issues of why people somehow have this negative thing. But I always explain to people, it's like, when people ask me, is astrology kosher? I like to ask them, are animals kosher? Well, the Torah says you're not allowed to eat pig, you're not allowed to eat shellfish. How can we eat it? Oh, those specific animals are not kosher, but many other animals are kosher. And that's part of Judaism, understanding what's forbidden and what's permitted. Everything is like that, and including astrology. There are forms of astrology that's strictly forbidden, and there are forms of astrology that not only are allowed, are a mitzvah to do. We're going to talk about, and the Gemara talks about that it's a mitzvah lachshev tekivas and mazalas. It's a mitzvah to calculate astrology. Rashi over there is explicit, it's talking about astrology. And the Ran, Rabbeinu Nissen, one of the great mefarshim, one of the great commentators on the Talmud, he explains, why is it a mitzvah? Because it's chachma mefoyer, it's astrology chachma mefoyer. It's a magnificent wisdom. Imakir gedolas koinai. It enables you to recognize the greatness of Hashem, because you see that Hashem is planning out your life. So that's why it's a mitzvah, because you understand that astrology is all Hashem, and it shows you clearly His involvement in this world. And he says another reason is in order to know how to answer to people who use it incorrectly, so you should become an expert and know what's kosher and what's not kosher. So literally, you can fulfill the mitzvah of lachshav kivs and mazalos, according to Ran, by reading my book, Kosher Astrology, because it's going to teach you what is kosher and what is not kosher.
Beautiful. Okay, amazing. So we do have the layered aspect of, here is this beautiful blueprint, here is a map, here is a manual, right? People say, you have kids, there is no manual. You have to just figure them out. That is not true. You can absolutely have some very clear idea of what is going on in your child's life, how they are, pre-formatted, so to speak. Now, that being said, people may feel, well, aren't you saying that everything is predestined, everything is preordained? And if we say that, then where is free will? Right? Like, how does kosher astrology navigate the conversation of free will and fate? A lot of people feel that they don't want to box themselves in a certain belief, right? So if it says, for example, Saturn is going to be opposing their sun, right? The planet of constriction and restriction and limitations is going to be opposing their capacity to shine and to have vitality in the world. They may say, well, that obviously is not kosher. That cannot be kosher. Now, there is a truth to it, but how do we make sense of what is fated, which clearly astrology shows us, well, this is fated, this is going to happen, and obviously having free will?
No, that's a phenomenal question. That's one of the big questions that our great sages really struggle with. Many discuss this question. How does that work? So I think it's very powerful with astrology to understand that there's another form of astrology that's not kosher, and that's called astromancy. That's the fatalistic or the deterministic form of astrology. So the Gemara in Shabbos talks about this, that if somebody's born on the energy of Mars, of Madam, right, which is a very strong, aggressive, assertive energy. And in those days, everybody believed that if you're born with that energy, you're going to be a murdering bandit, that you have no choice. So the Gemara at that time went very counterculture. It was another brilliant thing that the Gemara was teaching us. No, you have choice. Yes, that energy, that assertive energy is going to be there. But instead of being a murdering bandit, you can be a shochet, you can be a butcher, you can be a mole, you can be a circumciser, you can be a bloodletter. You can do other things and other ways to express the energy. And that's a huge part of kosher astrology, that we have free will. It never removes our free will. However, the starting point, we don't choose what family we're born into. We don't choose our parents. We don't choose their social or financial situation. However, we do have free will once we're born, where we go with it, where we take it. So if we have certain planets, if I'm a Gemini, if you're a Sagittarius, if you're an Aries, there's a certain inborn energy and traits. However, the free will part is, how are you going to direct it? How are you going to hone it? Are you going to learn? Because each sign has some difficult energies to it, some things you have to struggle through, and incredible gifts and powers. So that's where the free will. So there's a certain amount of things that are set up for you. Your mission and purpose in this world is set up for you. But the free will is you activating. If you're here to be a healer, if you have very strong Chiron in your chart, so you're here to be a wounded healer. So first to heal your own wounds, and then to help heal other people. Now, how you want to do that, whether you're a physical doctor, a psychologist, an energy healer, whatever it is that you want to do, that's your choice. How you express it, how you go through the process. So it's a combination of both.
Beautiful. amazing. And I also love to think about the fact that we are supported, we are guided, we are never left alone. So we have this, right? Things are going to happen. So, for example, we have this incredible planetary alignment that's coming up in a few weeks. It's extraordinarily rare. So we know that the puppet master, right, the energy that is behind this all, clearly has a plan where things are going. And in a way, we feel carried by that force, by that superpower, by the power of Hashem. However, you look at people's charts and they could be very similar, like, for example, twins charts, and they could have completely different lives because they chose every step of the way to do something different. So you're always going to be sort of supported by the bigger transits, by the cosmic energies are always going to be there, but you decide to activate your light or your shadow every single step of the way, for every sign, for every conjunction, for every square, for every placement. You have to be the sovereign being, which is the energy of the sign of Aries, the sign of the self. And we were discussing earlier that your MC, right? Your MC is in Aries, but I do want to pause on that for a second and go back to the incredible, crazy story that this place right here is a place where you used to work, used to be successful, used to do something completely different. And today, your Mars is on your North Node. So we do have an activation of destiny of some sort, clearly realigning you with, not realigning you, but reinforcing the alignment, which clearly was already there because here you are. But Mars, the planet of assertiveness and drive and agency, is on your North Node, activating the trajectory of your soul. So that's pretty amazing.
It's wild beyond wild. Literally, I'm telling you, my whole life, I've charted my whole life, and it's constantly happening. I mean, right now, the energy of Neptune is all about elevation and transcendence and oneness and connecting with the collective, which means whatever it is that you're talking about or selling, you don't have to convince people because you're tapping into what people want to hear. And literally, this happens once in 40 years that it hits your personal planets. And right now, over the last year, it's on my MC. The MC represents your public life and your career. So it's on that. And it's exactly connecting to my Mercury and Venus. And Mercury is your communication and thinking. So I'm here sharing with the world. And Venus is about your values, the things that you're very passionate about. And all of this is aligning right now in the heavens over the last year. And this has been, again, I thank Hashem every day, one of the craziest years of my life. And my book came out and I'm on all these podcasts and I'm talking in front of thousands of people. And I've gotten such overwhelmingly positive, incredible, people are blown away by this. And I'm still stunned by all of it. And it's just so wild. And so watching these messages like, okay, that Hashem is telling me, hey, this is what I'm taking from this message, that, wow, 30 years ago, I was focusing on a whole different part of my life. I wasn't grown yet. I hadn't yet stepped into, that's another thing people have to realize. I was still living what I was taught. And I was taught you're supposed to work hard, make a lot of money, become a philanthropist, support your community. And that's what I was doing. And I was doing very well. But at some point I recognized, okay, now what? It didn't satisfy me. But for many years I was doing that and I was very happy with it. So I want people to understand there's a process and a growth process that you might reach a certain stage where you're not happy or satisfied with what you're doing because there's a whole nother part of you that's ready to emerge. So that was 30 years ago. I was right here. And today, 30 years later, I love it because today I'm actually doing something from my skill set. I'm really who I'm here, who Hashem created me to be, being a Gemini, which is all about learning and information and sharing and teaching. And I have incredible energy of Pluto connected to my Mercury. So I really, when something makes me curious and I want to understand, I dive deep. So I read hundreds of books on astrology. I've read every sefer that I can find on astrology. That's Pluto. It adds incredible intensity, almost obsession to it.
So you have Pluto. What's the connection it makes to your Mercury?
Pluto squares my Mercury and my Venus and my MC. So this is incredible intensity and power, and Neptune is lighting all of that up.
Wow. And where is Mercury?
Mercury is at 0.44 of Cancer.
Okay, that's crazy.
That's beyond crazy.
That's crazy. And your Venus, where is your Venus?
Is 2938 of Gemini. So it's
that's
also
crazy.
right. So they're conjuncting each other, one in Gemini, one in Cancer. And Neptune was hitting my Venus and my Mercury.
Wow. So I want to make a quick parenthesis on the fact that when you have a sign at 0 degrees and when you have a sign at 29 degrees, it's very revelatory because at 0 degree of the sign, we have the seed. We have the energy of chokhmah, the beginning, the launching pad. So it's not fully formed yet. It's there. There is all of it in its essence, in its capacity, but it hasn't fully been formed. So we have an energy of, this is a Uranian energy of electricity. But when we have 29 degrees, it's really the important degrees of signs are 0 to 1 degrees, 15 degrees, and 29. The beginning point, the middle point, and the end point. When we have 29 degrees of a sign, we have the entirety of the sign. The launching pad moment, we have the formation of the sign, we have the completion of the sign, and then we have the fullness, the wholeness, all of it. And now when we have a conjunction, when two signs are connected and they fuse one another with the energy of the sign, and the planets fuse one another in different signs, but yet not only do they fuse each other with their own energy, so Venus and Mercury, love becomes connected to communication. My message is my love. My heart is in my message. My heart is in my book. So I feel like that's for sure something that people are going to be able to tap into. But they're in different signs, meaning they are so rich and they bring such different levels of understanding to one another. We have this youthful, exuberant energy. Did you say your Mercury was 0 degree of Cancer?
Yes.
So when we have Mercury at 0 degree of Cancer, we do have this youthfulness, which you have, this desire to just give, it want love. Cancer is a sign of the mother, the love, the caretaker, the nurturer, and connected to Mercury is I'm going to take care of you through teaching, through communicating, through loving with my message. And this is really, I did not want to get into the details of the chart at all, but this is so radical. The 0 degrees, conjunct 29 degrees in different signs, such personal planets, as we're talking about your message, which is connected to your heart and how much you want to love and give through the book. That's extraordinary. Now they are connecting to Neptune, which is this bigger planet, not a personal planet, this larger generational planet, which is going to be entering Aries in a week or so.
Yep.
Which is, people have to understand, is not only, Saturn, for example, enters a new sign every 2.5 years, 3 years. Here we have a planet that not only enters a new sign every 14 years, but also is ending an entire zodiac cycle, right? So however, we have your Neptune on your MC, so we do have this energy of transcendence, of elevation, of spirituality, of connection with the divine in your line of work. But something that you are beautifully not mentioning is the fact that Saturn is there too. So here you go to undo the myth that Saturn is scary. Because what Saturn also truly does, and side note to the fact that you are in the watch business. The watch business, watches and time, that's an energy that's ruled by Saturn, the planet of time. Understanding time. So here we really have the energy. As soon as you said watch, I was like Capricorn, Saturn. There is a story here with time. Understanding that sometimes things will only come about with time. We have to let time do its thing. So here you did not mention the fact that Saturn, the planet of structure and limitations, is creating this sort of fortress around your line of work.
So the thing with Saturn, I think it gets a very bad rap. So yes, Saturn requires hard work and discipline and restrictions, right? However, what is it doing? What is its purpose? It's building something, and you're building authority. So I spent 5 years writing my book, right? So that's hard work and restrictions and discipline. But it built my authority. It put me on the map, the fact that I was able to put out the book. So Saturn on my MC is not restricting, it's establishing my authority in the public world. Again, I was never a public figure before, and this is establishing my authority. So to me, it's not a negative thing. We should never fear planets. Planets are here to help us grow. It's about our attitude and our perspective. That's what's really important. So, and the problem with Neptune is an incredible energy. The problem is it's so diffuse, it's so woo-woo that by itself you can float away. You need some type of grounding because it's so spiritual and so elevated, it has no grounding. When Saturn you're adding that to Neptune, it's grounding that energy. So I can talk about incredible things like astrology and the energy is coming in your life, and people can relate to it. I can ground it. One of the big things that I like to say, that astrology is not woo-woo. The Meiri, one of the great commentators who lived in the 1200s in Spain, he says that astrology is teva, it's nature. This is the way Hashem created the world. Just like the sun shines its heat and light and a flower grows and it's an amazing thing, we take it for granted, but it's just as miraculous, right? But we take it for granted. Oh, that's nature. Astrology is also nature. It's not woo-woo, it's not magic, it's the way Hashem runs the world. So understanding that and having that Saturn and Neptune together, it's an incredible combination. And we can talk about the effects that it's having now in the world also. It's incredibly powerful.
So would you say, I like to say that because your book came out, it's a personal belief of mine, right? That you are born during a time for a reason. And if a book comes out, we are blessed with hundreds of thousands of books in our libraries. We can access knowledge from 12th century Spain. We can access knowledge from 2026. When a book comes out at the time that you are alive, when a message that is an ancient message, but carries wisdom for the future, is revealed during our time, I think it's incredibly important to listen. Clearly, there is something that has to do with us and the message. Now, why do you think, and you can explain it astrologically, suddenly we have people that have been sleeping on a language of nature? The planets have been here always. This knowledge has been known forever. This has been, and that's what people don't realize, this is just the way people used to do things. They would just look at the astrological weather. And also they were not worshiping the planets. So they had this beautiful balance of being connected with the messengers that the planets are. They were connected to the signs that Hashem put into the world, not in a way to extrapolate Hashem from the equation ever, but it was part of the conversation always. Somehow this is removed and now we are gaining it back. We're reclaiming this power back. Astrologically, how do you explain people resurfacing this ancient knowledge and making it theirs again?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack with that. There's a lot going on. So I think just for me to understand, like when I started writing the book, I had also Neptune connecting to my sun. This was back in 2020 and 2021.
And what connection was it making?
It was squaring my sun.
Okay.
My sun is in Gemini, 21 Gemini. And so when Neptune was at 21 Pisces, so it was squaring my sun. And that's incredible inspiration, elevation. And that's when I wrote my book. And I have to tell you, I read my book today, I'm like, who wrote this? It's so good. Like, it doesn't feel like I did it. I just felt like I was a vessel from Hashem.
It was channeled.
Yes, it was inspiration. Hashem sending me right. And I was just typing. Let's get it all out. It was ready. The time was ready for this. You can see it's all orchestrated from Hashem that the time was ready. Astrology absolutely was a huge part in Judaism, in the world, that people used it. The problem was that as Jews, we were constantly being persecuted. We had to run for our lives. And astrology is more complicated. It takes time and energy to create charts, especially back in the day when they didn't have computers. I don't understand. I don't think I'd be an astrologer, right? They literally had to calculate every single planet, look up the Ephemeris, see where it is. And in order to create a chart, it took them hours. I can look at thousands of charts today. It's so incredible what I can do. What the Ibn Ezra, who wrote 14 books on astrology, was a professional astrologer, he had to calculate all of this by hand. So I'm amazing how dedicated they were to doing it. But through our persecution, that wasn't the first priority. So it kind of got lost and it kind of got forgotten. And as we had more time, in Spain, in the 1200s, before the Spanish Inquisition that happened much later, for 200 years, Jews lived incredibly well there. Astrology was flourishing at that time. Everybody in Spain was very into astrology, so that was something that Yitzchok A, the Akedas Yitzchok, he wrote an incredible sefer, Akedas Yitzchok, and he talks every other chapter talks about astrology in his sefer. Abarbanel was very into astrology. They all lived in Spain. And so it was very powerful at that time. So it only became forgotten as we were expelled from all these different places. And so today there's such a revival. In general, you can look at the whole history of the world. Everything, the mundane things of life now take much quicker. In the olden days, you want to do laundry, you had to go. It took you a whole day just to do laundry. Today we throw it into the washing machine. it enables us. The problem is we're not focusing to understand why is that here? Why is everything so much easier today? So we can focus on our growth, on the deeper elements of life. It allows us the luxury to do that. Back in the day, it was much more survival, so it was much harder to do it. And that's what's incredible about all these incredible sages who really dedicated their lives to it. But today, we have the opportunity to really to free ourselves up from the day-to-day, to really look deeper. And we're ready for it. The generation is so hungry for it. We're sick and tired of just making money, just being on the 9-to-5 wheel and just doing that. We're ready for something greater and higher. What am I here to do? What is my purpose? What is my greater purpose? And you can see it unfold there. So I feel like everybody's ready, and that's why this book had to come out, because this has so much information about each person's life. Yes, your life has a whole story, has incredible amounts of information about who you are and what you're here to do and the development and timing of your life. It's all there. So we are ready for it. It's ripe. The world is ripe for it, especially with Neptune going into Aries. And Aries is that assertive, that warrior energy, and Neptune is elevation and transcendence. We're ready to be a warrior with elevation and transcendence and higher purpose. So that's
Beautiful.
Just incredible right now.
Yes, beautiful. Yes, exactly. So we have this need to dig deeper, right? Saturn has journeyed through the last degrees of Pisces. Pisces is the sign of spiritual wisdom. It's the sign of also, unfortunately, the shadow aspect of Pisces could be martyrdom and victimhood, right? Because it obviously always comes from a good place. Pisces are extremely spiritual, extremely sensitive, and that sensitivity not channeled, which is also why astrology is incredible, because astrology will show you, hey, that thing you've been hating yourself about all these years, or that thing you've been making yourself ashamed for all these years, this is just your superpower. You just have to redirect the story. So with Pisces, we had this resurgence of victim mentality that people are done with, really. It's about, okay, we're done with thinking that we are not in charge. With Aries, the sign of the self, the first sign, the sign of here I am, there is this energy that what can I do to truly understand myself and live my life? This is my life. Astrology will show you clearly, right? So it's not so cookie cutter that it will tell you tomorrow, go get this job interview, because yes, you have to decide. Yes, we still need you in the room. We still need you to have agency. It's not that simple. But if you are open to conversing with the creator of the universe, you're open to hearing what else is out there for you, it will be so beautiful and so mapped out. However, you do need that sense of self-sovereignty, right? Which is what Aries is bringing to the surface. So here, would you also say that Pluto in Aquarius, the planet of destruction and disruption, in the sign of Aquarius, which we just entered yesterday, the sign of the future, right? The sign of disruption, the sign of what is to come, the sign of freedom. Would you say that Pluto in Aquarius energy coupled with Neptune and Saturn in Aries is helping for that astrology search?
Absolutely. Aquarius is all about innovation and new things. But Pluto gets such a bad rap. Look, so I have a very strong Pluto in my chart, so I'm going to defend Pluto.
So tell us a little bit, where is Pluto in your chart?
Pluto's at 29/18 of Virgo in my chart. So
Okay.
It's literally, so Pluto's here, my Mercury and Venus is here at 29, Venus at 29 and there, and my MC is at 0. So literally they're all very strongly connected.
Okay, so pause again. I want to take this a second
Okay.
to absorb this.
Okay.
So we have a lot of zeros and 29. So when we have zeros and 29, we have someone who's here to finish something, like this is the end of a belief, right? So the end of the belief that astrology is not kosher, for example, the end of the belief that this is not for us, the end of the belief that nature is magical and magnificent and so smart and creative, but somehow it's not for us. So this is leaving. Right? This is leaving our consciousness. This is leaving certainly the Jewish people and a lot of other spiritual, elevated, holy people as well. This energy that Virgo is the sign of healing. The fact that we cannot heal through what is more elevated, those Neptunian forces, is going out the window. It's over. But you're also bringing something new. with all the 0 degrees, right? We have this newness, this vibrancy, this vitality. 0 degrees is called the Aries point. So whenever we have 0 degree, we have an Aries energy. So 0 degree Cancer Mercury, we have this, I am going to communicate this like never before. And in Cancer, it's through nurturing and through kindness, right? I'm not kind. I'm like, you don't think this is kosher? Go read the book. Don't talk to me. But you are doing it with patience and kindness and effort. 5 years is a lot of care, a lot of nurturing right through the book. So that's really, really magical. But Pluto at 29 degrees of Virgo, this is also where we have a very investigative mind, right? Because Virgo wants to heal. At 29 degrees, we have all of the healing. I'm going to take care of this problem once and for all. And Pluto is also a generational planet. So carrying that personal degree in your chart is an incredible message. Okay, so let's go back to this story.
Absolutely. No, so yeah, because my moon is also in Cancer. So yes, so a huge part, it's all about, Cancer is all about nurturing. Cancer moon is the mother of the zodiac sign. So absolutely. So when I do a chart reading, I want each person to fulfill their purpose. I don't want them to be stuck. I don't want them to be doing what their parents told them to do. I don't want them to be unhappy. I want them to find your purpose. Why? Life is short. Why should anybody be stuck and unhappy? I want you to be fulfilled. Do your purpose. Reach out to who your true self is. Become conscious of this stuff. That's what I get so excited about. And I want people to thrive. Nothing makes me happier than when people call me up a couple of weeks after a chart reading. I quit my job. I'm following my dream. You opened up that thing. I now believe in myself. I can do it. Nothing thrills me more. So absolutely, I want to do that. I want to get people going. Now, in terms of Pluto, saying that Pluto is destructive is missing. It's like the first part of the sentence. Pluto is not destructive. Pluto is ending one thing in order to start something else. It's a death and a rebirth. It's part of the thing. None of these planets are negative in any way. And I'm not saying that life can be painful sometimes. Absolutely. Transitions can be painful. I always say there's a 3-part process that we have to go through at major points in our lives. First is a crisis point, then we have a liminal space and a new direction. So crisis point is, for example, the Jews in Mitzrayim, right? So they were there for 210 years. They were a slave nation. And Moshe Rabbeinu came in and said, okay, it's time to leave. Crisis point. Everything the way you've known about life is ending now. And it wasn't an easy process. They went down to the Yam Suf. They were at the sea, and Pharaoh's army was chasing them down, and there was a major crisis. And every time, in fact, it was very scary. Every time they had a crisis, they said, why'd you take us out? Why aren't you? And even though they were a slave nation, it's a very scary time when something is ending, and that's a crisis point. The next stage, once they came into the desert, they were in the Midbar, it's the no man's land. Now what? We're no longer a slave nation, but who am I? What am I? If I don't no longer have my old self, I compare it to trapeze artists. They swing on these things. So they grab a trapeze and they're swinging, and somebody pushes a trapeze from the other side. At some point, they have to let go of this trapeze, and they're flying through the air, not holding on to anything. So it feels very discombobulating, being in no man's land. I don't know who I am. So that's why they were in the desert for 40 years to discover who they are. Now, during this no man's land, it's incredibly powerful growth time. That's when Hashem gave us the Torah. That's when we had all kinds of miracles. The manna was falling from heaven. We had water from a rock. We were able to defeat these great armies. All these incredible things developed. So we were learning, whoa, there's a whole new thing in life. And so it took time to let go of our old persona, our old self being a slave nation, discover who we are, and then that's when we're ready for new direction. That's when they entered Eretz Yisrael, they entered Israel, and they were there for the next 1,000 years. So once they discovered who they were. And this is for all of us. We're here to go through this process at different points in our life, to really a crisis point. You get fired from your job, you got divorced, you lost all your money, some really painful, difficult stuff. It's opening you up because you were on the wrong direction. You were not fulfilling your ultimate purpose of what you were here. You're still living the life that you were taught to do. There's nothing wrong with that. That's part of the process. But then you feel lost. Oh no, and it's a very painful process. But I find it's very helpful if you understand that feeling lost is you're on the right track actually, and that's what you should be feeling. And eventually you're gonna find your new direction and your new purpose. So it's so powerful with astrology to see this unfolding. It gives you that incredible hope. And Pluto is a huge part of that, because Pluto is, I always say, is a caterpillar transforming into a butterfly. It's taking your old life, a life that you couldn't even imagine living, and it's building you into that. If you tell a caterpillar that it can fly, it looks at you like you're crazy. What are you talking about? I need 28 legs just to walk. I've never flown in my life. Why are you saying I can fly? But it goes through a process. The body liquefies. It's not always an easy process. It turns into a chrysalis, a cocoon, but when it emerges as a beautiful butterfly that can fly, that can do things that the old caterpillar never imagined it can do. So I love encountering people, and if they're in the part of their chart where they're still caterpillar, they haven't yet recognized these other parts, I get so excited for them, because look, you can, incredibly powerful things you can do. And I show them great leaders who, if you have a Pluto transit, people are like, oh no, I'm so afraid of it. It's going to be the greatest empowering moment of your life. You know, Javier Milei, who's the president of Argentina, he was a member of parliament. People didn't take him seriously. He loves Jews. He said he would convert to Judaism, but he can't keep Shabbos right now because he's president. Like, this is really amazing. Very outsized figure. And he had a Pluto transit on the sun that happens once in 60 years. And he transformed from a member of parliament to become the president of Argentina. He's changed the monetary system, one of the most powerful presidents. And you can see this in people's life. This is when you're going to transform to the next level of who you are. And sometimes when I tell this to people that they're here to do some amazing things, I literally can see that they're shrinking. They're like, no, me, no. And I tell them, you know, the reaction you're having is the same one that Moshe Rabbeinu had, you know, that when Hashem told Moshe, you're here to do a huge role in this world, to be the leader of the Jewish people. You know, Moshe Rabbeinu answered Hashem. He said three things. First thing he said, Mi unaychi, why are you picking me? Who am I? Why are you picking me? This is Moshe Rabbeinu saying this. The second thing he said, take Aharon a Kohen, my brother. He's an incredible leader. Take him as the leader. And the third thing he says, and this is very common, I deal with this all the time, I'm flawed. I have issues. I can't be the spokesperson on the Aral Sefasoyim. I have a speech impediment. How can I be the spokesperson? This is Moshe Rabbeinu, the greatest Navi in the world, had these doubts. So this is very human. I see this all the time. People have these doubts. You know, I can't be the speaker. I can't do this. I show them in the chart that what their butterfly version looks like, and they're so afraid of it, and they're so shrinking from it. And I try to tell them, this is normal to feel this way. But at the right time, don't worry, you don't have to go out tomorrow and do something what you're not ready for. You know, for most of my life, I was a very strong introvert. I would never speak publicly. If you told me 30 years ago that I'm going to speak in front of thousands of people, I'd have told you you're crazy. There's no way. I was one of those people who absolutely would have shrank from it. But at the right time, and this is what I also try to, so important to understand, it becomes not about you. We're nervous to speak publicly. Oh, am I going to say the right thing? How is my hair going to look good? Like how are people going to react? People are going to criticize. What happens when you become passionate about something, all of that fades away. It's not about the ego. It doesn't matter how I look. It's about my message. I'm here to share my message with this world, and that's the impact. That's what's important. And once you start focusing on that, everything else falls away. So just know at the right time, it'll be there. This is all part of our process. It's amazing. And this is all Hashem. Hashem loves us. Hashem wants us to succeed. Hashem wants us to fly. Hashem wants to, you know, I always tell people, Hashem is pouring shefa, which is blessings and growth. He's pouring it down on us. But why aren't we feeling it? Because we're standing with an umbrella and the shefa is falling off the side. And I'm saying, let's go. Do the healing work that you need to do. Be open to the growth that you need to do, and fulfill your purpose. It's all there. And all of this is in astrology, and all of this is a love letter from Hashem. That's what astrology is.
I want to say it's a love letter from you, honestly.
So
and I want to ask you, because you know, you could have been the person who was chosen. And I think that when we have Mercury at 0 degree, there is this energy of choice, because what are the odds to have so many starting and finishing business in the same life story? But it was you, right? You are the one that was chosen to bring this back to the people, to the tribe. The tribe, which is an important theme in the month of Shvat, because Shvat and Shevat are the same letters. Aquarius is about the tribe, about the collective good. So you were chosen for this job. Now you on a personal level. So we have a Cancer moon. So the moon is home, very emotional, very sensitive, very porous, very beautiful, very caring, right? The mother is at home almost like in her kitchen, right? She wants to feed her children. She's so loving. She has so much to give. Connected to Mercury, so connected to your wisdom and your knowledge and your communication powers. On a personal level, did you feel like at times you weren't able to shine as much as you wanted? Or how are you able to relate so much to that in other people? How can you feel so sad if they are not the butterfly yet?
So for sure. I think a huge part of our lives, and that's part of, the Chiron is the wounded healer, right? So what does that mean? We go through our own wounding, and through the process of trying to heal ourselves, we gain expertise, and then we can help heal others. And not just because we have the expertise, because we also have the experience of what it's like. So absolutely, in my own life, I grew up in a cookie cutter world where everybody needs to have the same color shirt, and everybody needs to be exactly like their neighbor. And, the energy of Uranus being authentic, out of the box, independent, was very strongly discouraged. So it's really a process of learning who you are, what's the truth about life. We're told all kinds of things. So it's really important to re-examine and re-explore and to learn that. And once we do, and once I've seen that process of life, and I mapped out my entire life, literally every single point in my life, what the energy was, what was going on for me, and I see the growth, and I see the unfoldment of who I was and who I became and what that looks like in the chart. Again, that's what really important to understand. The birth chart is a growth process. It's showing you a blueprint of what you're here. So it's not your finished product when you look at the chart that right now you're a finished product. It's a growth process. So seeing it myself, I'm like, wow. And also I see how fulfilling it is when you're doing your purpose, when you're full alignment, that you're feeling something. So 30 years ago, I was doing very successful as a businessman in international sales. But it was not fulfilling. At the first, the money is great. And I was doing, so it felt good. But it wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't fulfilling my purpose. I wasn't bringing my creativity. I wasn't uplifting others. That's a huge theme in my life, what I'm here to do. So when you're fulfilling that, nothing feels good. There's nothing in the world as fulfilling as doing your purpose that you were born to do. So when I saw that and I experienced it so much for myself, of course, absolutely. And I want everybody to do it. That's why I'm shouting from the rooftops about astrology. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to know when one of the greatest moments of your life is, when you're here to do incredible, inspirational stuff? It's so, you can be stuck and about to hit a new moon, a new beginning for the next 30 years of your life. To me, it's so encouraging. I'm doing a charting for somebody, and they're going through such pain and suffering. In the last 30 years were miserable and horrible. And I see that next year they're starting a new moon for the next 30 years of their life. That's so encouraging. It's like you can leave that part of your life behind. You can start brand new, fresh life. It's so encouraging. Let's go. Like, if people understood the process, it can remove so much pain. And so again, life is tough. I'm not saying but it can really help us understand the process and that everything is meaningful. Pain is never for nothing. It's there for some kind of purpose. It's not a punishment. It's helping you get in the right direction. It's like when you go to a doctor and they give you a needle, it's not a punishment. There's something there to benefit you, to help you. And yes, it's sometimes painful. And sometimes we need that hug. And sometimes that's where the Cancer energy is there, just to be the encouragement. Yes, absolutely. We're human beings. And it's okay. We don't have to be perfect. There's so much stuff. When people are Virgos, they're so self-critical. It hurts me to see. You can't, I always tell people, it says in the Torah, V'hafta l'ra'acha kamocha ani Hashem. It says three things. It says you should love your neighbor. Hafta l'ra'acha, you should love your neighbor. Kamocha, like you love yourself. And then it says ani Hashem. So there's three beings. There's Hashem, there's you, and there's your neighbor. And everything you do in life has to include all three. If you're loving your neighbor, but you're not loving yourself, you're doing it wrong. If you're loving yourself, but you're not loving Hashem, you're doing it wrong. It has to involve all three, that you're loving Hashem, you're loving yourself, and you're loving your neighbor. And then life can be so amazing. It's so beautiful. That's what I want everybody to hear and see. And astrology shows you that. It shows you your personal involvement of Hashem. This is not for the whole world. This is for you specifically.
Right, because you can see in your chart exactly how you were formatted to live this life so you can shine, so you could be in your purpose. Now, question for you. With Pluto at 29 degrees of Virgo, we could have those tendencies for perfectionism, right? For wanting to do it right. We can have an investigative mind, right? We have intensity. So how do you manage knowing astrology, but not taking it into a place where we enter an Ein Mazal Israel type of situation, which I have, I see people I work with, I give them tools, and then those tools become like self-inflicting pain tools. Like, okay, they have to turn it against them. So, for example, they know they have a good transit. I would call it a good transit coming. Well, in their Virgo mind, in their perfectionistic mind, they are going to suddenly give their self-agency away, right? And they make it into this, Hashem is this puppet master that's controlling everything, and they don't get to step there, to bring their full self to the table. How do you personally manage using astrology as an amazing tool, but never letting it infringe on your own sense of, like risk-taking, for example? Okay, and does that show up for you at all?
So, Bereshis Rabbah says that every blade of grass has an astrological energy urging it to grow. That's the reason why Hashem created astrology, is to help us grow. Once you understand that, there's no such thing as a bad transit. There's no such thing as something that's going to remove your agency. It's here to encourage you. It's here. And Hashem is going to send signs. I always tell people, listen to your messages. There are constantly signs. The Baal Shem Tov talks about it. That if you walk down the street and you hear like a half a sentence of somebody walking by, that's a message for you. Everything that you hear, nothing is in vain, nothing. Now, sometimes it's hard to interpret those messages, but I got an incredible message today. Like, it's so wild. And I have to tell you, there's another piece to this message that not only I came back 30 years later when I was at the peak of my last career to now where I'm like at the peak of this career, like 30 years later. Not just that, the day that we're doing it, so this was a family business. We had a couple of suites here in this suite, and also we had a storefront. We're selling watches internationally. We had people from South America used to come in and buy. And so my father was here running it for 22 years. He worked here. And it's really wild. And my father passed away a few years ago. And tonight is his yahrzeit. So that also is just blowing my mind, that not just the place and the timing of where my father spent so much time and energy, that I came to a place where he worked for 22 years, and tonight is his yahrzeit. So I do want to say that it should be Le'ili Nishmas, or Pinkesz, Ben Asher Anshel, his neshama should have an aliyah.
Amen.
So that's also very wild. So we constantly are getting these messages. To me, that's also like a tap, even though he's not here, like a pat on the back telling me, hey, Yitz, you're doing a good job. You're on the right track. So that's just also very powerful. We constantly have these messages. And once you can tune in, you can see how powerful it is. And then you shouldn't let anything stop you. If you know Hashem has got your back and you're here to do the purpose. I tell each person, whenever people struggle with self-esteem and when their Venus is having some kind of issues or problem, if there's Saturn connected to their Venus in their chart, Venus, it's so important, is your sense of self-value. And it's crucial that every person, the Gemara says, the Talmud says, that every person has to believe, Bishvili Nivra Olam, that my purpose and mission is so valuable in this world, it's worthwhile, that Hashem created the whole world just for me. And it's not just words to say, you have to believe this in your kishkas, that you're on a mission from Hashem. Once you do that, nothing is going to stop you. Nothing gets in your way, because it's not about you. I have a boss. Hashem is giving me these messages, telling me my mission, created me with the skill sets to do my mission. I'm not going to let no human being stop me. And it doesn't matter what people think or say or do. I'm here to do my mission. And I encourage everybody, once you're doing that, you'll see, yes, you might get some objections. You might have people. It doesn't matter. You're here to do your mission. And once you know that Hashem's got your back, nothing can stop you.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I want to connect everything you just said to the current energy of the moment, because again, when you have to schedule with a professional, you have to look at each other's calendars, then you have to look at the calendar of the studio, then there's a few back and forth, timing, days, week, availability. So when you get to a time, and it's the time, right, that it's going to be divinely orchestrated, that's when you meet, that's when you're going to talk about, we both, thank God, are blessed to be engaged with the work of astrology. And it's the second day of the month of Shvat, right? It could have been a few days ago. It could have been in a month from now in Adar or Tevet. But the month of Shvat, which is the month of Aquarius, is very much the energy of disruption for the sake of liberation. So I'm going to come. I'm going to frazzle you. I'm going to shock you. I'm going to make you feel very uncomfortable, which is what we do day in and day out when we talk to people and we say, well, guess what? That's here. Guess what? It's time to wake up to this. Guess what? You don't have to live like this, right? So it's very much what we are engaged with. But it's for the sake of freedom. Now, the Aquarian And you mentioned Moshe Rabbeinu when Moshe said to Hashem, I can't, who am I can't speak, I can't do it, right? What's very interesting is that Moshe is very connected to the energy of Aquarius.
Yes.
Moshe, when Yocheved sees him, she says the Yeled is good. The Yeled is the same letters as the Dli. Dli is Mazal. Mazal Dli is Aquarius. So the Redeemer is an Aquarian, right? The energy of I'm going to disrupt you, but I'm going to free you. And I have to say that, of all the people in the world that could have, I'm assuming that now we're going to see a lot of these books. I'm assuming that now this has opened the door for, I work with a lot of yeshiva students. I work with a lot of rabbis. I have a lot of people that are extremely interested in this. And I think that in the next 10 years, we're going to be seeing hundreds of books on Jewish and kosher astrology. I think it's the whole point. I think you open the door, you open the vault. I think only someone with a 0-degree Cancer, Mercury in Cancer, could have done this because you care. It's not coming from, it's a great business. It's not coming from, I have a good idea. This was only enabled, right, because of the care, because of the love, because it's so real to you. So you were chosen, right? You could have been another type of guy. But I did read what you wrote at the end of the book about your father. It was very beautiful. My first question to you was, what? You spent 5 years writing a book on astrology when it wasn't a thing yet? Now, yes. Now we have people, they're talking about it, it's in the air. Amazing. But then, what did they say to you? Did they judge you? So we're talking about your father. He raised you in a way that you felt confident enough to put aside money and business and success and status to focus on your truth. Right? You weren't born in it, right? You weren't made in a day. Like the fact that you had that support, which is, the divine masculine energy of the father, clearly that we meet in a place where we were talking about watches still, are we still talking about watch, talking about time? So you know how nothing of value is built in a day. What he built up to this moment, which is the Ashgacha Pratis, the divine providence of actually meeting on so it's going to be the third day of Shvat.
Yes.
The third day, and the third day is the Chazaka, the presumption, the force of the energy of disruption and liberation. So this is really all in his merit. It's such a huge deal. And it was a very beautiful, emotional, I don't know how it's called, like dedication that you wrote. It was incredible. Like it's the first thing that I read was that, because I was like, what kind of a person is this person? It's someone who's connected to his family. It's someone who has real values, and it's someone who was raised in so much truth. So that is that says so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. No, and I fully agree with you. I want everybody to be an astrologer. This is something that every person should learn. So definitely you can become a professional astrologer, but just for your family, just for your kids to know the charts. Somebody comes into your life, a new friend, a new person, a business partner. Understand the energy.
Teachers.
Yes, everybody.
Right?
Like everybody should be knowledgeable about astrology, and many people, you can become a professional astrologer. I want to encourage everybody. I want everybody to be successful. This is something that's so powerful and helpful, and there's millions of people out there who need this, So absolutely, I'm really hoping this spreads like wildfire. Absolutely.
Beautiful. We're talking about the energy of Moshe. He poured the waters, right? And those waters weren't actual water. Aquarius is not a water sign. It's an air sign, because he poured the waters of the Torah, and the Torah is an intelligence, right? It's something that you learn, something that you study, something that you process, which the Gemini energy is very, very comfortable with. So we have this new wisdom that is being revealed to us at this time for a reason. It is critical that we engage in it because it shows our desire to connect with Hashem, to connect with what else is out here, right, for us. And for us to truly, if we want to take advantage of these transits, right, we have this massive it's not once in a lifetime, it's once in every few lifetimes that we have this Neptune meeting Saturn at 0 degrees of Aries. We're starting a whole new cycle.
0044, which is exact literally to my Mercury, 0044. It's crazy.
The odds are not normal. Like this is something that is miraculous. And also, also, I like the word magic because people feel, oh, this is magic. Like you say, astromagic, but astromagic really truly is astromagic. We're going to make magic through the stars. But the truth is, we are forgetting how magical nature is. We're forgetting how, no, this is magic. This is insane. It makes no sense. This defies the laws of logic. And yet, Hashem clearly wants us to witness it. So we're supposed to have magic. And I relate a lot to the constellations and the fact that they're images. It's almost like Hashem was like, guys, it's so pretty. Look up. We have animals. We have stars.
Stunning. It's mind-blowing. If you can, it's unfortunate in New York, you can't really see the night sky. But if you go to Montana, oh my God, the night sky is just mind-blowing. It's stunning. It's beautiful. And today
you can see the images. You can see the fish. You can see the scorpion.
Yes.
And when if you can just pause for a second and know that if you look up, you can see a massive scorpion made out of stars. 2 fish next to each other made out of stars. The Betula, the Virgo, this beautiful, massive lady who's holding the scales of Libra. You can pause and you realize there is a lot more going on than actually belongs here in this cookie cutter black and white Saturnian world. Like we have more. There is more. We have to bring all these energies down below.
Absolutely. In fact, when the Gemara says that Avram Avinu, the father of the Jewish people, was a professional astrologer. It says in Torah, Vashem Bairachas Avram Bakol, that Hashem blessed Avram with everything. So the Gemara asks, my Bakol, what is everything? It's Tagninas Gedoyla Hoyse Beliba Shel Avram, that the great knowledge of astrology was in the heart of Avram, Bakol Malchai Mizrach Marav Rashchem Lepischoi, that all the kings of the East and West used to rush to his door to ask him astrological advice. And Rabbi Yitzchok A in his Sefer Akedah Yitzchok writes that Avram Avinu used astrology to teach the world about Hashem. He was showing this is not random that's happening. These are not false gods. This is all Hashem controlling everything and creating everything. So by knowing astrology, that's how he brought people to understand that Hashem is running the world. And that's what's so amazing. And that's why the Ran says it increases Yiras Shamayim. The Ibn Ezra says, only an astrologer can truly appreciate the greatness and the wonders of Hashem when you see how all the planets interact. So this increases Yiras Shamayim. It brings you closer to Hashem by knowing astrology and seeing, wow, he's incredibly involved in our lives. So it's so powerful.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes. Amazing. I just want to see how much we're doing on time.
Where are we?
Okay, great. Okay, so just a few more minutes, if that's okay.
Okay.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Good. Okay, amazing. Quick question. When it comes to the charts that you read, are there some specific aspects or specific groupings of planets in a sign or specific signs even that you like to see, that you feel suddenly a lot of compassion for the person with a certain type of chart? What comes up for you in chart reading?
So much. Wow. You have 5-6 hours? Okay, first, whenever I see Saturn Moon or Saturn Venus, my heart breaks right away. I know that this person has gone through, so what's Saturn's restriction and discipline, and Moon is the emotions. So as a child, very likely, they may not have felt emotionally supported. They had Saturn on their Moon. And that's so painful for a child not to feel, that's so crucial for a child to feel emotionally supported. And there's a process of learning self-love and learning self-appreciation. And the same thing when Saturn's on Venus, that this sense of self-esteem, self-value, you're not good enough, you have to work harder, you have to accomplish. I've had somebody tell me, I did a chart reading, he had Saturn, Venus, and he told me he finished Shas 7 times. That's an incredible achievement. Wow. And I'm like, wow, that's an amazing achievement. But understand, that's not why you're valuable. You're valuable because you're a chaylik elokayim imal, that you have a godly essence. A 2-month-old baby has done nothing as incredibly valuable. And when Saturn is it's the message that we get, I'm not valuable unless I achieve, unless I do incredible things. It's great to finish Shah 7 times. That's an incredible achievement. But that's not why you're valuable. And that's the message that it's so strong so that's I right away feel the pain of their process, or if they have Chiron connected to some planets, that can be, but again, none of that is here as a negative. If you've gone through pain with Chiron, some wounding and trauma, you're then here to help heal people. You're going to be able to heal people in a way that nobody else can. It's building something. It's all purposeful. Another one of my favorite is when I see Mercury and Venus is conjuncting. Now, I have that in my chart, yeah. But it's one of my favorite because it's a common sense type of energy, because Mercury is left brain. It's more the logical and linear. You know, sometimes you meet people, if it hasn't been proven in a double-blind scientific study, I can't believe it, it's nonsense. That's very left brain, linear, logical thinking. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's very one-sided. Venus is much more open to Kabbalah and mysticism and creativity. There's much more to life than what you can see in the next 4 yards in front of you. And when somebody has Mercury connected to Venus, they're able to do both. They're able to be very logical, linear, but also open to mysticism and also open to, so that's why I call it the common sensing. So whenever I see that with people, I'm like, hey, that's really awesome that you have that, you know? And if you're too much strongly sided in one direction, you have to expand. You're not reaching your fulfillment. When you meet somebody like that, that's very left brain, they need to tap into their Venus. They need to tap into the other side. I'm not saying that's not a great skill set. It is an important thing, but there are other sides. So there's so many, almost like you can give me any configurations and I have like, that's just so, and it's amazing. Hashem makes so many unique people. I've done hundreds of chart readings and I counted the one I just did yesterday. Wow, just wild, so much energy. That's another thing. Sometimes they have Uranus and Pluto and Chiron. So usually people have a particular, like for me, it's Pluto and Jupiter. Those are my two strong energies. Jupiter's enthusiasm, excitement. You can see it how I express myself. And Pluto is all about depth, going deep and talking about the elephant in the room that nobody's discussing because I'm like, hello, I want to shout this from the rooftops. Why is nobody talking about astrology? It's deeply tied to Judaism. We had so many great Jewish leaders who were astrologers. They all talk, I bring hundreds of sources in it, and it can incredibly help your life. Nobody's talking about it. Nobody's mentioning it. So Pluto is shouting about the elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. But sometimes when people have so much energy and it gets confusing, it's hard, especially a child or growing up, how do you handle so much different energy? So I tell them, it's like, you know, the armed forces, there's the Army, there's the Navy, there's the Air Force, there's the Marines. Now, if each one is off doing its own thing, it'll be a disaster. But if you have central command, and if you hone each one, and you learn when to deploy the Air Force together with the Marines, that's when you're so powerful. So when people have all of these energies and their life is like a mess, and I'm like, okay, yes, because these are incredible gifts. You have incredible power here, but we have to learn how to hone it, how to build it, how to operate them all together. Because almost everybody has conflicting energies in the chart, two very different sides of themselves. So I'm Gemini and Cancer. So Gemini is all communication and learning and information and sharing and teaching, curiosity. Cancer is all about love and nurturing, right? So it's emotional, and this is air. Two very different sides. But look what I do with a chart reading. So I'm taking all the information from the birth chart, that's all my Gemini side, but I'm dealing with a human being so I can be compassionate and understanding and loving so I can combine the two. They don't have to conflict. That's to me the biggest message I would want to share with everybody is that whatever you feel is a conflict in your life, yes, it feels very real. It does not have to be a conflict. There's a way to integrate. There's a way to address both sides of yourself. You cannot suppress a side of yourself. Nothing good will come of it if you're suppressing a side of yourself. So it's all about integration. It's all about healing and bringing it all together. And that's incredibly powerful, and it's all there for us. It's just so powerful.
Beautiful. So besides for having written this magical book that I think belongs on every bookshelf. Like I said before, this is a book of our time. When something there's this eruption of truth, of energy that comes back. We need to be a steward of that energy too. So besides for the beautiful Kosher Astrology book, you also have other offerings where you actually create entire maps for people. And those could be amazing gifts, right? Because they're hardcover and they're personalized, they're custom made. And essentially you take a person and you will tell us a little bit about the kosher maps.
So
the road
these
maps.
are called road maps, right? So I have two different kinds these are hardcover books, and it's about 55 to 60 pages, and it's personalized for your life. So one book will take all the major transits of Uranus, Neptune. Uranus is when you're here to speak your truth and you're really here to step into your power. It will tell you, it happens once every 22 years, and it will show you throughout your life when that energy is going to be connecting to your sun, to your identity, and to your moon, to your emotions. And that can be very disruptive, but it's here to help you step into your power. So it will list all the dates in your life. And the same thing for Neptune, which is an incredible inspirational time in your life, right? I wrote my whole book on Neptune. I'm doing now is all Neptune once in 40 years. So it'll list the specific dates of when that's happening for you. And the same thing with Pluto, when you're here to go through these big transformations, when you're ready to go from caterpillar into butterfly. So this lists from age 0 to age 90, all the major transits in your life. That's in one roadmap. And the other roadmap has all the big major progressions in your life. These are once in a lifetime energies that's so powerful. So I'll give you an example of Sun Neptune. That's when Martin Luther King gave his I Have a Dream speech, which is one of the most famous speeches in American history, that I have a dream that one day my children won't be judged by the color of the skin, but rather by the content of their character, which is incredibly idealistic.
And yesterday was MLK Day.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
We're so aligned.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And he had his once-in-a-lifetime Sun-Neptune progression happening then, which means that was an inspirational message that and not just that, the collective was ready to hear it. That's the beauty of Neptune. You don't have to sell what you're doing. That message reverberated around the world, and it's still today such a powerful message. That's once in a lifetime. I'm like, who doesn't want to know when is your once-in-a-lifetime Sun-Neptune? There's so many powerful things that can happen. And the same thing when you have once-in-a-lifetime Sun-Saturn. So I had that. Literally, Saturn is hard work and your authority emerges. Literally, when my ship, the boatload of books arrived in New York, was the exact day that I had my once-in-a-lifetime Sun Saturn.
Wow, there you go for Saturn.
Yeah,
I love Saturn.
What?
Saturn is amazing.
Yes, yes, it establishes your authority in the world. That's the thing also. So many times when I hear it getting a bad rap, like with Neptune, people think, oh, it's this disillusionment. And like, yes, there can be. If you're not doing your purpose, if you're focused on ego, if you're not focusing, if you're doing what you're here to do, these energies are incredibly powerful. And all of that energy, and also the cycle, the 30-year cycle that I was talking about, that you can see different stages where you're at, the growth process, that's also in the roadmap. So those are roadmaps. You can find it on my website at kosherastro.com.
Amazing.
You put in your information and it's personalized for you, and you'll get it in a couple of weeks. You'll get a hardcover book in the mail. But the big thing I want to talk about is this Kosher Astrology. It's a Jewish guide to celestial wisdom. It's a 500-page book. And I broke it down into 3 sections. Really, the first part is really understanding what's kosher and what's not kosher, all the sources. If you have any confusion, it says Ein Mazel Yisrael, or it says Tamim Tiel Hashem Lakecha, you should be hold with Hashem, and people think it doesn't mean astrology. I have whole chapters explaining exactly what it means. I bring down all the sources, and you have the original Hebrew in the bottom in the footnotes. I translated everything into English. And then the second part of the book, I talk about astrology, what it is, how it can help you. I created 75 pages of illustrations, so it should be easy to understand. It's in full color. The pages are thick in chromo paper. I wanted it to be beautiful, not just all the knowledge. I wanted it to be a coffee table book, really. And I have to shout out to Mosaic Press. They did such an amazing job. You know, they told me, like, you talking about, you know, making sure it's right. The editing that I did on this, the years of work, they told me that no other book in their history had much screen time of people working on it like this book, because there was such an intense, so much material, and with the illustrations, so there's incredible there. So for me, the biggest thing is if I'm providing something, I want people to get their value. And I'm a big believer you're fully getting your value with this book to understand what astrology is, what it can do for you. And one of the most amazing things, I did a ton of research, is I have 2 chapters about the discovery of the planets Uranus in 1781 and Neptune in 1846 and Pluto in 1930, how that changed the world. And that's incredible to see that each energy brought a consciousness to the world. Literally, you can see some of the greatest innovations happened at that time. So I have 2 chapters that are just fascinating about that. So this, again, so much information. And again, I want everybody to jump in, become an astrologer. So I'm also hoping, I've been trying to do it for a while, but I've been so crazy. I want to create courses to teach people how to become kosher astrologers, whether, again, just for your family or to do it as a profession. In the next couple of months, I hope to really have it ready and have it going. Amazing. So you can go to my website, kosherastro.com, and just sign up, like, just to get notified about emails. So as soon as it's ready, you'll get an email about that.
Amazing. That's so cool. And a quick note before we end, the crazy fact that some planets were discovered later on, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And the Ari talks, the Kabbalist, the Arizal talks about the connection between the planets and the Sephirot. And yet we did not really have a planet for Chokhmah. There really wasn't. We know Saturn is Bina. You know, she's the great mother who cares and who wants to, you know, contrary to popular opinion, it's actually not the father. It's, according to Kabbalah, she's the mother. But the energy of Chokhmah is the energy of the seed, right? The 0 degree, the point, right? And then Chokhmah is the father, Bina is the mother, and that is the baby. Chokhmah is a very Uranian energy. It's electricity. It's like, oh, I know. I got it. It was downloaded, right?
I call it the eureka moment. Especially when Uranus connects to Mercury, that's the eureka moment. You instantly get like wisdom, like, wow, this idea, this brilliant idea that pops up, that's Uranus, Mercury.
Beautiful, beautiful. So the fact that we are also able to finish completing the Sephirotic tree with the Sephira and the planets later on really is reminiscent of the oral Torah, which keeps on being revealed, which is, I really think, what you're doing with the book. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much. There's so many wild, crazy, mind-blowing things that transpired today. I'm still in shock, So wow, thank you so much.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Amazing. Thank you.